Okay, in this video I'm going to take a look at finding the Lambda maps in my Seat Leon 1.9 105 brake horsepower file. It's the EDC16 file that I've been using for all of the videos so far. Here I've got the injection quantity limited by MAF, which is a smoke map which is not really being used, hence the flat line. Here I've got injection quantity limited by air pressure, or MAP, so it's the map, and there's the little spikes for that map. Now if I scroll forward, what I find is an area here with 4 maps. One there that Winnowles has found, one there that Winnowles hasn't, one there that Winnowles has found, and one there maybe that Winnowles hasn't found. I say maybe because this one, if you, and here's a clue to looking at maps, if you look, this little peaks here, you've got 2 little peaks, although that one's slightly hidden, but look there, 2 little peaks, they're the axis data, so you've got one axis, second axis. Now if you look here, this could be the 2 peaks of the axis data, but it doesn't look right compared to that one, and that one. So I'm going to take a guess and say that this one's a genuine map, that one probably is, and this one's a genuine map, but there's something a little bit off about that one. Now, as this is the first one of what looks like 3 maps, I'm going to assume that these are Lambda 1, 2 and 3, or 0, 1 and 2, as Bosch often call them. Right, let's have a look at this one then. So we'll double click on here. There's the map. Now this is almost certainly engine speed, isn't it? So I'll just put in there engine speed and revs per minute. We don't need to make any changes down here, so I'll just say OK. Right, so that's all OK. Right, we'll go and have a look up here. This looks like it's MAF airflow. It's just a factor too big. In other words, it's 10 times too big, because I would expect this to be 850 and 900. So I'm going to assume that that is not MAF, I'll just call it mass air flow. I'll just put in brackets MAF, which is what I often call it. That is probably milligrams per stroke, and I'll just put air next to it to remind myself. And it's probably 0.1 because we want this to read up to 900. Won't worry about a decimal point because I don't think anyone's going to care whether that reads 900 or 900.5. So, and it doesn't anyway, so I'll accept that. Right, now what we've got left is this data. Now it's easy to fool yourself into thinking that this data is relevant. In other words, a figure of 1150 is a meaningful figure because it could be airflow, couldn't it? I mean, a figure of there, 1050, that could be airflow, maybe even air pressure. But if this is a Lambda map and you look up Lambda on the internet, you'll find that Lambda values are generally 1 or very close. Well, we've got numbers here of 1100, so if we just double click in the middle of there, let's make it 1000 times smaller, or 1, gives us 1. Let's give it a few decimal points because otherwise it's just going to look odd. We'll give it 3 decimal points. So what was 1400 is now 1.4. What was 1250 is now 1.25. So that gives me figures fairly close to 1, so that seems acceptable. Right, now this map is based on Lambda calculations. In other words, these figures have been pre-prepared and pre-entered by somebody who has already tested this engine on an engine rig and then worked out all the calculations that they expect to get. So the description of the output is simply Lambda, and there is a symbol, but I'm not going to worry about putting a symbol in for it. We'll just leave it like that. So we'll say OK to that. So there we go. We've got our first Lambda map. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do all 3 of them now, but I'll get them done at some point. But there's our Lambda map. Revs per minute, amount of air. If I stretch that out a little bit up to about 900, there's our Lambda values. Now I don't want to make a big fuss about what Lambda means, but if we just pick this region in the middle, we can see it's about 1, as I said. Now Lambda is effectively the air-fuel ratio that you've got, in other words the current air-fuel ratio, divided by an ideal air-fuel ratio. Now I don't know exactly which ideal air-fuel ratio the designers use, but there's a fair chance that they use 14.6, but they might have used 14.5. People often do, just because it's convenient. They could have used 14.7. But I tend to use 14.6 myself, so I'm going to assume they use 14.6. So all these figures that are 1 will have been calculated by dividing 14.6 by 14.6, and then the answer of course is 1. These figures here that are less than 1 will have been produced by using a value for the current air fuel of less than 14.6. So in other words, they will have used a figure of say just about 14, divided it by 14.6 and got an answer of less than 1. So in other words, when you see less than 1, it means that the amount of air was reduced. So correspondingly, the amount of fuel must be increased, even if it hasn't increased, because as a ratio it's gone up. So the amount of fuel as a ratio has gone up, and so therefore it must be a richer mixture. So when you see a lambda figure of less than 1, you've got a rich mixture, or at least a richer mixture than ideal. Here we've got values slightly above or a little bit more above 1. So at these points, the air-fuel ratio must have gone above 14.6 to 1. So these could be as high as 1.4 is probably somewhere around about 20 to 1. So 20 air to 1 fuel. So in effect, we've now got less fuel as a ratio, so it's a weaker mixture. So a number bigger than 1 is a weaker mixture. So what we've got here then is a slightly stronger mixture, which is down near our idle speed, so it's not that surprising. An ideal mixture somewhere in the middle just before boost kicks in, and then we've got a weaker mixture once boost has kicked in. Now this is pretty normal for any diesel engine. You would expect to find figures in the region of 1.2, 1.25 with a diesel engine, because the vast majority of diesel engines run a little bit air rich because they are happy to run on a much weaker mixture than many petrol engines could cope with. So that's why you expect to see numbers of say 1.2 or 1.25. Right, now if I just close that and get that out of the way for a moment then. So that's that one map. Now obviously, so we've got one lambda map there, we've got another one there which we will have to put the access data in for ourselves, and we've got another one there. That one, obviously, if I double click, will open just like this one did. This one I need to put the information in myself. So if I go and look at that one in text view, there it is. There's the axes data, 16 by 13. So if I go and look for the start of the map, it's 850, 950. We think it stopped at 900, don't we? So if we take that back there to 950, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13. So I've got 13. So that's 13 columns. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've got 16 columns there. For once it's easy to tell that I've got everything right, because there's the axes data and I'm going to hit the next map straight away, so this must be the correct block. So I've selected that, so if I press K, with a bit of luck, and it has, it's found the data that it needs. Look, there it is, it's just gone and found that and put that in. So whereas it hadn't found it originally, it now has. And obviously I could now make the same changes I did on the previous map, but I won't bother at this point. So let's get rid of that. So that's just get rid of the highlight, and I'll go back to it as there. So there's that one, and then of course if I double click on that one now, I'll just get rid of it. But now I've got 1, 2, 3 lambda maps and a possible lambda map here. Now I may come back to this one in another video, because I know from past experience that people do ask me about these odd bits of map that are, you know, looking like the real thing but may not be the real thing. So I may come back to that in a later video. But for now I'll stop here.